Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of FitChat. My name's Jenny. I'm your host, and I have a guest with me today. Our next guest is Mike Anderson. He is the program manager over at our Andover Fitness Center. So, welcome on, Mike. Thanks for hopping on. Glad you're joining
Thanks for
us.
having me. It's great to be
Yeah.
here. You stole my intro. I'm the program manager in Andover.
Oh, yeah. You can take it over.
That's it.
Love it. Well, before we start every episode, we love to get to know our guests a little bit better. So if you want to just chat about your background, your family, your interests, any of that, so our guests can kind of get to know you better.
Sounds good. So, like Jenny said, I'm the program manager in Andover. I started here on May 1st, so it's been a great few months. I live in Danvers, Mass, which is about half an hour from here. Half an hour's drive. So it's nice because I used to work in Boston and I'd sit on the highway for an hour every morning and an hour every afternoon. So now going from Danvers to Andover, I actually get to drive through a state forest and it's nice and quiet.
Nice.
It might take me a little bit longer, but it's a great way to come here. So anyway, I live in Danvers, and my background, I have a degree in exercise science, and I graduated from UMass Amherst way back in 1990. So a long time ago. Aging myself. And then I have a degree, certification in personal training, certification in triathlon coaching, some other certificate programs. I've taken senior fitness program, just some other ones along the way. And I've been personal training and managing gyms for just over 30 years.
Wow.
Mostly in Boston and somehow mostly in luxury hotels in Boston, although they've all been fitness centers, but they've all been, membership based, personal training, all the services, group exercise and everything. It was kind of a weird niche to be in.
So this isn't your first rodeo.
It's not my first, no.
Yeah.
Not by a long shot.
Love it.
Yeah. So I'm on my second marriage. Between my wife and I, we have 6 kids from 18 to 27. Yep.
Awesome.
So, and my 18-year-old stepson on this coming Sunday is going to Norwich University. So he's going to be in the cadet program at Norwich in Vermont. And going to be studying nursing. So, awesome. And aside from that, we have in the household, we have 2 dogs, 6 cats, and just outside of the house are 10 chickens.
I didn't know that about you. That's a fun fact.
yeah,
that's
a fun fact.
Lots of kids, lots of animals.
Lots of animals.
I'm sure it's not boring in your household, sounds like.
No, not at all. It's like Grand Central.
You stay entertained. Love it.
Yep. Never a dull moment.
Yeah. Awesome. Love that. Well, I know you have so much experience. So we're going to kind of chat through that today. I wanted to talk about the fit over 50 concept, how to stay strong, flexible, and healthy throughout our lifetime. And I know a large population of our members at the fitness centers are in that over 50 population. And, as you get older, it's kind of, I can't do this or I shouldn't do this. But really, it's important to move even more and keep doing the things that you were doing or maybe you weren't doing to stay strong and flexible and healthy. So let's rewind. And I would love to hear how your perception of fitness and health has changed as you've gotten older.
So I guess probably go back to when I was a kid. I was always active. Growing up in the 70s, you're always out riding bikes and playing and things like that. We didn't have video games and cell phones to keep us distracted, which was nice. I'd be out until after dark, and my mother would come looking for me for dinner.
Bring it on in, Mike.
Yeah, come on in. Which is not a bad problem to have. So growing up that way, but I was never, as a kid, really in organized sports until, and we can talk about this later, until high school. I didn't really get into organized sports, so I was just active. Just like I said, riding bikes, skateboarding, things like that.
Love it.
As I got older and, kind of through my teenage years, I grew up in a kind of a mixed sedentary, non-sedentary household. So my father was relatively sedentary. He was a banker in Boston, very busy job, a lot of stress.
Yeah.
Wasn't really into exercise.
Mm-hmm.
And he'd come home from work, and work to Boston, drive to Boston every day, come home, have dinner, sit down in his big recliner, light up a cigarette, and put on the news. And I'm
Yeah.
sure that's typical of a lot of kids that grew up in the 70s.
Oh,
That
yeah.
was exercise wasn't really, I think, at that age, as common. So
Right.
so growing up kind of watching that and looking at his lifestyle, for some reason that didn't really click with me as far as what I wanted.
Okay.
It probably clicked with me in the opposite direction. So that's kind of, it's kind of the route that I took, the opposite thing. So in high school, I got into sports. In college, I got into exercise science and personal training and all that. So, but as I get older, I guess to answer your original question, as I get older, you start to notice things, you hear everybody saying, oh, getting old stinks, and, this hurts and that hurts, my back hurts, my knee hurts. It's true, your body does start to wear down after a while, but, like you said, that's the most important time, really, even if you had never exercised before, that's the most important time.
Right.
To at least maintain or start, something. And just having experienced it myself, I mean, I'm 56 now, so I'm 6 years into my 50s. Even now, even though I'm in the business, it's still something every day or every week. Kind of reminds me that, oh yeah, just make sure you stick with this. Your hamstring's getting tight, or whatever. You're not drinking enough water. Whatever it might be. So,
it's kind of fascinating that, at a young age as a kid, you were kind of able to notice and recognize the impact that your dad's habits of, coming home, sitting and watching TV and just sitting in his recliner,
right.
the impact that his habits had on his health. So it's kind of crazy that you
Oh,
were
yeah.
able to see that and be like, all right, I'm not doing that.
Yeah, yeah. And it really came to fruition. And he's still alive and he's fine now. But when I was in college, I think he was 45. He had a heart attack. So I got the call, I'm out at school, out at UMass, get the phone call, dad had a heart attack, and he was okay. He had the stent put in and all of that. Not a lot of heart history in his family. My mother's side has a lot of heart, heart disease and stuff like that, but not so much on his side. So, is it 100% self-induced? Probably not, but I mean,
Right.
I think a lot of it is. So it's lifestyle choices. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was kind of another reminder. And this is probably freshman, sophomore year in college. I was like, all right, you're going in the right direction.
Right. That's awesome. Good for you. If you could go back in time and kind of give yourself advice as it relates to, overall fitness and health, what advice would you give your younger self?
I think when I was younger, I would have liked to have gotten into organized sports a little bit sooner. Like I never played Little League baseball for no real reason. It wasn't really a thing in my family, I guess. My brother played hockey. And he was a very good hockey player, and he played right up until he went to, right up until high school. And then he stopped. But for some reason, I just never got into organized sports. So I think that would be one thing, because I think it's really important, whatever it is, whether it's, track, tennis, football,
Have that foundation.
baseball, whatever the sport is, right? To have that foundation and just to kind of, the whole team environment's very important too. But luckily I did get into that when I got into high school. Just before high school in 8th grade, some friends of mine talked me into joining the wrestling team. So that was kind of my beginning of sports. Yeah.
Nice.
So that, and I don't know, I think nutrition is probably one thing that I would, not that my nutrition's really bad, but you've gone through the ups and downs of,
Oh yeah.
I love cookies.
Yeah.
Love
Don't we
cookies.
all?
So I'm known in the house as the cookie monster. So don't make
I just
cookies
had
because they're
cookies
gonna be
last
gone
night,
tomorrow.
so
Right. So I think just being more aware of diet,
Mhm.
especially hydration, things like that. So
Yeah.
those are some things that I would tell myself. But I think, overall, I think I was lucky that somehow I kind of figured out that sports and health and fitness was the direction that I wanted to go in.
Right. For sure. I think nutrition is such an important part of maintaining our health, and a lot of
Mm.
our dietary habits kind of stem from our childhood.
Right.
So if we kind of aren't taught how to properly nourish our bodies at a young age, it's even harder to develop those healthy eating habits like as we get older.
Oh, so hard.
Your metabolism slows down, you work a 9 to 5, you have kids to worry about.
Right. It
And
doesn't get easier.
right. And it's kind
Yeah.
of a trial and error process. I don't know, how it is for you, but I've gone through phases kind of like you said, and you know, if kind of figuring out what works for your body, because we have so
Right.
many options out there and so many choices, and there's so many diets out there. Um, and it's just kind of a trial and error process to see what works for you and what doesn't, and that even can change as you get older. And
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. No, it's hard to figure out. And I've gone through phases where, I don't have a fast metabolism. It's not like,
Hmm.
I haven't always been thin. And even now I don't consider myself thin, like thin, but I don't have a very fast metabolism. So if I get off track, the weight just starts piling on. It's
Right.
and even I think when my kids were younger, so when they were very young, you go through a couple of years where you're just kind of doing what you can for exercise and getting
Right.
through it,
Yeah.
but the weight just blows up. I mean,
Hmm.
up over 200 pounds at a couple points for me, which on a 5'9" frame is a lot of weight.
Right.
And then so for me, I've figured out that what works for me is not intermittent fasting, but time restricted eating seems to work for me really well.
Okay.
Which is just like I won't eat until say noon, and I'll eat between noon and 8 or something like that. So
Okay.
the time's going to vary depending on what's going on, things like that.
Yeah. I've heard some other
Mhm.
people that works really well for, but like
Yeah,
for me, I could never do that. And I I don't think my
right,
body would enjoy that. But
right.
I mean, what works for you might not work for me and vice versa. So it's just important to
Well, that's
remember
the
that.
thing. Yeah,
Yeah.
like you said, it's trial and error.
Yeah.
I was never really a big breakfast person. I never really was hungry in the morning,
Mhm.
but I was always hungry at night. So up
Yeah.
until 9 p.m., 10 p.m., some days I'd be hungry. So for a while, even recently, for a while, I shifted my window of eating from 3 p.m. to 8 p.m.
Mm.
just because that's what I felt like I
That's when
needed.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's smart. Listening to your body.
Yeah. Yep.
For sure.
And also,
And
cut out, not to get too much into diet, but I've cut out things like I don't eat a lot of dairy. So my coffee, I'll have almond milk.
mhm.
And even if I have cereal, I'll have almond milk in that instead of dairy milk. The only dairy that I have is
Right.
cheese, once in a while ice cream.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
dairy, I tried to cut way back on gluten, which a lot of people are, that's the thing these days. And you do,
Right.
it's not for everybody, but some people have sensitivities. Some people have, celiac disease that they can't eat gluten. Then some people just feel
Mhm.
better when they don't eat it. I'm just one
Right.
of those ones that just, I don't feel as
Feels
bloated.
better. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then sugar is the other one.
Yeah, sugar is,
Yeah. It's
you know,
in everything.
but it's so good.
It's great.
At least I think it's good.
It tastes great.
Yeah, but not the best for you. But
Right.
anyway,
Not at all.
it's also helpful, just as always, to find, professionals who can help you make that trial and error process easier.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
that's always a good starting point. If
Right.
you don't really know, you kind of feel weird or feel off, it's always good to talk to a professional and see kind of, what the next step should be nutrition
Yeah, for
wise.
sure. Especially if you're dealing with anything like diabetes and things like that,
Oh yeah,
you've got to have the people that know what they're talking about,
definitely.
give you some guidance.
So walk me through your previous accomplishments thus far in terms of fitness, because I know there's a lot. So walk me through it.
Uh, I guess it depends on, well, let's see. So, like I said, in high school, I wrestled. Um, all 4 years of high school, I was probably an average wrestler. I think I made it to the state tournament once or twice. Never placed, but I
Nice.
just loved it. It was a great sport and it was a great workout. Talk about diet.
Awesome.
I mean, I would have ice cubes for lunch sometimes to make weight, which
Oh gosh.
wasn't the yeah, wasn't the healthiest
Doesn't
thing.
sound
Although
very
it's funny
healthy.
back then, the night before a dual meet or something, you have usually on Wednesdays you'd have a meet, and on the weekends you'd have a tournament. Like on Tuesday night I'd have just a hamburger patty,
Hmm.
for dinner, and then because you have to weigh in, so you have to
Right.
be at or under your weight.
Yeah.
So those weren't the healthiest choices back then, but you know,
You did what
you
you had to
learn.
do.
Did what you had to do. And you learn a lot of those things you can't do these days in wrestling. Um, and then I played football, and I was, played football for 3 years. I didn't play senior year. So then after that, I guess, kind of more recently in the 90s, not that that's recent, but in the 90s, I got into triathlon. So somehow I got interested in doing triathlon. I think a friend of mine showed me an article on a professional triathlete. His name is Mark Allen. He's still around. He was a world champion, multiple, I think 5-time world champion back then. For some reason, when I was reading the article, just his story just really kind of inspired me for some reason. So I decided to try a sprint triathlon. There were several different distances of triathlon. So this is probably in 92, somewhere around there. I did a sprint triathlon down on Cape Cod in Massachusetts, and that's all it took. It's like,
and you were hooked?
I love it. Yeah.
Wow.
I love it. Swim, bike, runs is great. And that was a short, I mean, the whole race probably lasted an hour and a half or something. But
so how
yeah,
old were
for
you
some
at that
reason that
point?
really just, I was 25 maybe.
Okay.
Somewhere around there.
Awesome.
Yeah. So about 25. My first son was born in 95. So I did, between 92 and 95-ish. I'd done, a few sprint triathlons, nothing really any longer. And then the kids came along, and then that whole thing got shut down for several years. And it wasn't until it was 2003 I wanted to get back into it. So I signed up for a half Ironman up in New Hampshire.
Wow. What a way to get back into it.
Yeah. I kind of throw myself into things.
Apparently.
Set big giant goals and see what happens, right?
Yeah.
So I did it. I completed it just over, it was about 6 hours. And at that race, so that was 2003. At that race, a friend of mine did it as well. He's in the business. He's a personal trainer, and yeah, we both had a great time. We're like, let's make a pact in 2006 we'll do Ironman Lake Placid, which is full Ironman Lake Placid, New York. It's like one of the top locations in the country for Ironman. Like 2 years, 3 years. That's plenty of time to get ready. So.
Yeah.
That was my first Ironman race. It was in 2006 in Lake Placid.
Wow.
No, I loved it. I did it on a road bike. I didn't have any training. I didn't have a coach. I didn't really know what I was doing. I just kind of self-trained and got through it. And then, again, I'm like, this is it.
So what about the sport or competing really made you hooked to it? Like, what was it specifically, if you can kind of pinpoint it?
Yeah, I think part of it's the lifestyle.
Okay.
Because you're training for 3 different sports, right? So you're swimming, biking, running, but then you're also weightlifting. So you're trying to keep your muscles strong. You're stretching as much as you possibly can. So the training is a big part of it. It's a whole. You learn a lot about yourself when you're, especially if you're training for an Ironman. You're out for a 5 or 6 hour bike ride on a Saturday. There's a lot of time to spend with yourself.
Right.
So it's really eye opening. And then the events themselves. One of the things that I really love about the events is that there are so many different people doing them, different body types, different abilities, different disabilities. They have wheelchair events. And I've seen people, actually, I think it was in Lake Placid one year. I saw a guy running, and he must have dislocated his shoulder at some point. I don't know, it was during the race. So whenever, but he was running with one of those slings that holds your arm up to the side like this. Do a whole marathon that way.
Wow,
I've
crazy.
I've seen people in boots,
Man.
Things like that. So yeah, I think that's what really draws me to it, and really, still to this day keeps me motivated to do it.
Do you feel like it is kind of the structure of it that helps you? Like the structure of the training and like the, I don't know, repetitiveness kind of having to.
Yeah. I mean, the requirements are so high that you kind of can't let up.
Right.
So for me, I'm the type of person, I need to have a goal. So like in this past December, I mean, we're going to talk about injuries, I think, in a little bit, but this past December, I had a total hip replacement. So after that, and after a couple of months, I was back up walking and biking, cycling, indoor cycling, things like that. And the doctor said, I think it was after 12 weeks, I went and saw the doctor. I said, what do you think about, running? And kind of see how it goes. You can try, after a few months, you can try a mile, then try 2 and see how it feels.
Right.
So after he told me that, I said, all right, I'm going to sign up for I'm going to sign up for another triathlon.
Okay.
Which I know it's crazy, but yeah,
That was your goal.
that's part of it. The training, the consistency, the goal.
Right.
I knew
Yeah.
that, having been in so much pain for the several months leading up to the hip replacement, I was in a funk. I was probably in a little bit of a depression because it was just, I wasn't able to work out. My weight was going up. I'm like, I need to have something that's going to give me, something to shoot for.
So how many Ironmans have you completed?
8. So 8 full.
You said
The last
8?
one, the last 8, yeah.
Wow.
So far. So far.
Wow.
And then number 9 is coming up August 20th.
Wow. That's soon.
If I can get through.
That's awesome.
Soon, very soon. Yeah.
Any other races that you've done or triathlons that were a big moment for you or big challenge?
Yeah, so the biggest challenge, and of course, me being I want to push myself as hard as I can kind of person.
Yeah.
Signed up for, so there's a triathlon called the Swiss Man Extreme Triathlon. It's in Switzerland. And they only allow 250 athletes. It's a small race in Switzerland. So they only allow 250 athletes. So you have to enter a lottery every year. It doesn't cost anything. You just throw your name in, you fill out the form, you put your name in, and they have a drawing in November and they tell you whether you made it or not. So it took me 4 years. Yeah, for some reason I saw a YouTube video. Yeah, it's a lot. I don't know how many people entered the lottery, but quite a few, I think.
Yeah. I mean, if it took you 4 years.
This YouTube video, 4 years to get in, right?
Right.
YouTube video looked amazing. I'm like, oh, this looks great. I have to do this, at least try it.
Yeah.
So I got in 2022. So that was last June that I did the Swiss Man. So it wasn't a supported race either. It was interesting because you have to bring a support crew with you. So both of my sons came with me and my best friend Dave came. So we all flew over to Switzerland, rented a van, started in a little town called Ascona, which is northernmost part of Italy, southernmost part of Switzerland. And you swim 2.5 miles in Lake Maggiore, and then you bike up and over the Alps, and then you run, and you end at the top of this mountain. So that one, it was my first time not finishing a triathlon. I made it 16.5 hours into the race, and I got cut off. They had a cutoff time at mile 18, and I missed that cutoff by 15 minutes. So,
couple questions. What did you mean by support crew? What does that mean?
So typically in like an Ironman race, they'll have, water stops, like every 10 miles on the bike, they'll have people handing out water and Gatorade and things like that. They'll have medical tents, they'll have motorcycles riding around the course in case your bike breaks down.
Right.
In the Swiss Man, there's none of that. So you have to bring it all with you.
Gotcha.
And the last part of the last 6 miles of the marathon is, I think it's like a 3,000-foot climb up a mountain. And you have to have somebody go with you. So you can't just, trek up by yourself.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So I would get out of the water, get on the bike, mile 17, my crew would meet me there, refill my water bottle and Gatorade bottle and all that, give me my nutrition, meet me another 10, 15 miles out. Yeah.
That's awesome.
It was a lot of fun.
So
even though I didn't finish, it was so much fun.
Right. So it was your first did not finish. How did that affect your mentality?
I don't think, well, it made me want to do it again.
Really? Okay.
Made me want to try it again. Yeah.
So you had no moment of like,
crazy. My wife thinks I'm crazy. She thinks I'm insane. But
yeah, like if that happened to me, I feel like I would be pretty defeated, and I feel like I might have to take a step away from doing it for a little bit, and then eventually get the need to do it again. But you immediately said, "All right, I'm doing this again."
Well, I think I was thinking about all the things that I could have done to save 15 minutes because I know I could have made, like physically and mentally, I know I could have finished the race if I hadn't been stopped at the cutoff. So I'm just going back. The bike ride took me 2 hours longer than I thought it would. So the bike ride, instead of taking me what I thought would be 8 hours, took me 10. So that shortened the window that I had to do, the marathon in. Yeah, I guess I don't know. Like I said, I'm kind of a little bit competitive and a problem solver. So I'm trying to figure out where could I have saved 15 minutes?
That's awesome. That's a good mentality to have.
So
yeah. So
on top of it, I mean, at the time I was 55 and I got 94% through this extreme triathlon, and I felt I was okay with that.
Right. Yeah, that's awesome. It's, it's not an easy feat, that's for sure.
No, no.
Um, so we talked a little bit about injury, but how kind of have you avoided, or obviously you had, your hip surgery. How have you avoided or handled injuries as you've gotten older?
Uh, so I've had a lot of things. Plantar fasciitis is probably one of the most debilitating ones that I've had, and I had that a long time ago. I think it was in my 30s probably when I had that. So that's something that a lot
Mhm.
of people deal with.
Yeah.
And it was to the point where I couldn't walk in the morning, even running, because usually when you get up and you start moving around a little bit, your feet, they kind of stretch out. Your plantar fascia stretches out, and
Hmm.
it feels better. And
Right.
running wasn't a problem, but it got to the point where even running a little bit hurt a lot. So
Well,
so that for me, it's different for everybody, but for me, I lost some weight, plantar fasciitis went away, and luckily it hasn't come back. Um,
good.
and then a couple of knee scopes, torn meniscus in the knees, had the knees scoped. I had my shoulder operated on in 2013.
Wow.
But I think the biggest thing is addressing the problems. Whatever's kind of limiting you from doing what you want to do. The plantar
Hmm.
fasciitis made me not be able to run. So I want to take
Right.
care of it. Same with the knees, the shoulder. I couldn't swim. There was a lot of things I couldn't do with the shoulder. I couldn't sleep. Because the
Right.
shoulder was so bad. Get it
Yeah.
taken care of. But then same with the hip. After Swiss Man, I came back, and I think that's kind of set off. I mean, the arthritis is already there, but I think that really made it angry.
Hmm.
Sitting on a plane for 8 hours after doing a race like that and just not really recovering well.
Oh yeah.
But address the problem, take care of it, and then the biggest thing is really following doctor's orders after. Go to physical therapy, making sure that you're healing the right way, and making sure that you're recovering the right way, and not rushing things. So
Right.
for my hip, when I told my doctor that I was doing Ironman in August, he said, "I just do me a favor. I want to see you in July. I want to do another X-ray just to make sure everything's healing
Hmm.
properly." So I went and had my X-ray a couple of weeks ago. He said everything's fine. It looks like it's all healing well. The bones are all growing in together. And I told him that when I first started running, I was getting a little bit of mid-thigh pain, and that's where I
Hmm.
don't know if you've ever seen kind of a hip replacement. That's where the new femur goes into the old femur is about mid-thigh, and
Interesting.
it's not. Yeah, so I looked it up, of course, and they said you might just be doing a little bit too much too soon. So I backed way off. I stopped running for a while and just focused on biking and swimming.
Yeah.
He was very happy I did that.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
bet.
It's like, thank you. Yeah. You don't need
Yeah,
any issues.
exactly.
Yeah. But yeah, I think
What
that's
a,
the biggest thing is really, listening to the doctors and kind of, you know, taking
yeah,
care of your body, doing what you need to do to recover.
for sure. But what about
Yeah.
avoiding injuries? What do you do to kind of, say, okay, let me do my best to try to avoid injuries in the future?
Yeah. I mean, staying strong is definitely staying strong and flexible and mobile.
Mhm.
Probably the most important things.
Yeah.
I do a lot of like strength training, especially doing triathlon. I do quite a bit of upper
Yeah.
body work. Um, and I
Hmm.
stretch. I've always been relatively flexible, but that starts to go away a little bit as you get older. So kind of staying on top of that, making
Right.
sure that you're flexible and mobile and strong. I think, I mean, even just with the training that I'm doing now, getting ready for this race this coming weekend, I think it's helped me get through, 10, 15 hours of training a week and, kind of help me stay strong and avoid further injuries.
Yeah, for sure. It's huge. I feel like a lot of people don't realize how important strength training is for, stuff like that, triathlons, just runners in general. I feel like,
Anything.
yeah, a lot of the
Yeah. I
time
mean,
strength
especially as
training is
we get
put to the
older.
bone. Hmm.
Yeah. I mean, especially as we get older, I know the recommendation is 150 minutes of exercise a week
Hmm.
and a couple of strength training sessions. I almost think it should be more strength training,
Yeah.
than cardio.
Hmm.
Depending on what your goals are, but as muscle mass starts to go away, balance. I mean, I
Exactly.
know people now who have trouble walking around and wouldn't be able to get up off the floor if they fell just because they're not strong enough. So
Right.
that's incredibly
Yeah.
important. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So what kind of inspires you on a day-to-day basis to kind of stay active and keep challenging yourself as you age?
I think part of what inspires me is probably my kids. Yeah, because I
Yeah.
want to be kind of a role model for them. And they're very
Hmm.
active. Like I said, they're both doing this race with me this coming weekend. And this would be their
Wow.
first attempt at a full distance Ironman. So it's, I've had them on a training plan for the last 6 months, and they've been doing great and kind of, for the most part, sticking with it. And they're in their 20s. So they're going
That's
out and having a
awesome.
good time and stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think, just going back, and they've been watching me since they were little, do these
Mhm.
races. I think for me, just, kind of being that role model for them and staying active. And so far it's
Right.
worked. But there are
Right.
also
Yeah.
people that inspire me. Some of the things that inspire me the most are people who have faced challenges and still, you know, accomplishing incredible things.
Right.
A good friend, especially as we get older, whether it's age or disease or, whatever it might be. A good friend of mine, Michelle, it was in March, it was like March or April 2020.
Hmm.
And she's just a couple years younger than I am, but she had done a couple of Ironman races. She's always been very active. She went to the hospital for, I think, like diverticulitis or something. So she was hospitalized. Doing the blood work, they found out that she had leukemia.
Oh.
And no, so here she is, 50 something years old. She had done
Hmm.
Ironman races, really been very active over the past several years. And she went through all the treatments and everything. She's in recovery now. She's actually doing this race this coming weekend.
Wow, that's
But here
awesome.
she was in the hospital. She had to bring a spin bike into the hospital room for her so that she could at least do
Yeah.
some kind of exercise, instead of just
Yeah.
sitting around all the time. So you look at somebody like that, it's like, all right, what's your excuse?
Exactly. Yeah. Wow.
you know. But I love
That's
those
very
stories where you
inspiring.
see people who are either, disabled or dealing with some kind of illness or something that are still, motivated to keep
Right. If
moving
they're
forward.
doing it, why can't I?
Right.
You know?
Right.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be anything, extreme or crazy. I mean,
No.
I've coached a lot of people and trained a lot of people who just, they might want to do a charity ride or,
Hmm.
go hiking or something like that. So
Yeah.
stay fit.
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah. Kids are a big motivator because,
Certainly are.
you're the role model.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
And there's
That's
so many
awesome.
directions they can go in these days.
Mhm. Oh yeah.
It's hard to know. Yeah.
With technology and everything, it just gets harder and harder to keep kids
Right.
active and moving. So that's awesome that, you know, you're a big role model for them and they're doing the race with you. Like that's so
Yeah.
incredible. So that's awesome.
Now they're my role models.
No. That's awesome. So what are some items that you've kind of focused on daily as you've kind of hit the age of 50 and over that kind of help you stay healthy and moving?
Probably one of the bigger ones is nutrition. Like I was saying before, my weight does tend to fluctuate. I by no means have an easy time staying, like maintaining weight. So
Mhm.
that's been a bigger focus over the past 5 or 6 years of mine. Like I said, I've tried, the keto diet, I've tried the primal diet, I've tried, all different kinds of diets, low carb, high carb, low fat,
Yeah.
high fat. Um,
Yeah.
and what I found for me is kind of time restricted eating and cutting back on sugar. I think
Mhm.
especially sugar for me, sugar, dairy, and carb
Yeah.
and gluten just seems to be what works for me. My body feels
Yeah.
better. Yeah, so focus on that. I focused a lot more on flexibility and mobility, just maintaining that. Like I said, I've always been pretty flexible, but certainly not as flexible as I used to be. Hamstring flexibility, I would never have a problem getting past 90 degrees. Now it's a little bit, not quite, maybe 89. But,
Yeah.
just 89, 85. But just trying to maintain that. Um, and then the strength training, core work, which I was
Huge.
never a huge fan of. I don't know anybody is a huge fan of doing core work. It's kind of one of those necessary evils where it helps everything. It
Yeah.
helps running, it helps swimming, it helps biking, it helps weightlifting, it helps posture, it helps everything.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
but I've kind of figured out some of the core work that I don't hate so much that I can actually do. You
Right.
know, yeah.
I know you work with so many clients, and I feel like you are very good with the older clientele. And I think I want your perspective on this, but I think um, as you get older, you kind of people think when they hear strength training, they think of bodybuilders and heavy lifting and CrossFit style training.
Right.
But, strength training for an older population just needs to be brought back to the basics. Like you said, core training,
Mhm.
working on the squat, the hinge, the press, the pull, all of
Right.
the movements that we're doing every single day of our lives. Um, and that are even more important as we start to get older, so we can kind of maintain those structural movements, just being able to
Right.
lift things, put things up in a cabinet, stuff like that.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, like you said, push, pull, squat, lunge, hinge, and rotate.
Hmm. Yeah.
Lateral movements.
Hmm.
Everybody stops moving sideways when we get older. We just go forward and backward, and
True.
we just go in one direction.
Yeah.
And a lot of clients that I work with in their 70s and some in their 80s, and I've had clients up into their 90s that have worked with focus a lot on um, core strength and major muscle strength and all like I said, all the major movements that we do. But then also one thing that we don't really talk a lot about is balance.
Oh yeah. Hmm.
So balance and stability. So I'll have people, depending on where they're at, do single leg exercises or maybe doing like a heel to toe balance for
Hmm.
time. Um, stand on unstable surfaces. I used to teach this class when I was working in Boston, where I'd have a lot of people standing on a Bosu ball doing whatever, medicine ball toss or
Yeah.
something like that. So they're working on balance and
Yeah.
stability, coordination. So,
Huge.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Love that. I think going back to nutrition too, I mean, earlier in this episode, we were talking about cookies and joking about how we love cookies. And I think I think it's important to, remind everyone that we do try to follow a cleanish diet, and we
mhm,
try to, do the best we can, but we also, it's not an all or nothing approach. It's just
right,
not
right,
sustainable. So, like, we're human, we like cookies, we like sugar in moderation. So,
right.
I like to follow the concept of, everything in moderation when it comes to nutrition. And
Yeah,
I feel like that's a good kind of system for me.
yeah. There
And
has to be a balance. I mean, you can't be, if you're trying so hard to follow this diet and exercise plan, you're absolutely miserable.
yeah,
Then it makes no sense. I mean, I
yeah,
like cookies, I like craft
yeah,
beer, and
right,
all
yeah,
that. And I had all that this weekend, and
yeah,
I'm fine with it.
hmm,
I
right,
start fresh on Monday and,
yeah, everything
kind of
in
try and do the
moderation.
clean thing during the week. Right, right.
Yeah,
So it really depends on what works for you. But, it's the same with
exactly.
exercise. If you're doing or given a program with exercises that you hate, you're not going to do them.
Right,
And a lot of people ask
exactly.
me like, well, what should I get? I want to get I want to get a rower for my house. I'm like, well, have you ever rowed? Are you going to use a rower?
Right.
Well, I've never really
Hmm.
tried it. But all right, well, a rowing machine is probably not something you're going to do for 45 minutes a day.
Exactly.
you know,
Yeah.
so finding things that you just enjoy doing, and that's always been the challenge with training people is you know finding that balance of things that they really want to do, things that they like to do, and the things that they actually need. They
Right.
need to do.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah. And that's why a trainer can help, like Mike.
that's right. Yes, exactly.
Love it. So, what advice do you give your clients in their 50s, 60s, and even their like 80s and 90s when it comes to mindset?
Um, a lot of people kind of play the age game of, I'm just getting old. This hurts and that hurts. I'm just getting old. I'm like, somebody said it to me the other day. Like, it's like, oh, I'm just getting old. I can't do this. I'm like, that's no excuse.
Yeah.
It's an excuse for some things, but you do what you can to, we're all getting older. There's nothing you can do about it, but there are certain things that you can do to kind of help yourself along the way. Like
Yeah.
you're talking about strength training, just trying to eat a decent diet and things like that. I also encourage people to have a goal, whatever that goal might be. I mean, my goals are pretty extreme, but then you have other people who want to do, like a 5K or a charity bike ride. I had a woman I was working with. Actually, I was just starting training. I was probably 2 years into my personal training career. So I had this woman, she was in her 80s, she had Parkinson's, she had Alzheimer's. She would come in 3 days a week and do a training session with me. And when we sat down before we started, I asked her what her goals were. And she just wanted to be able to stand up in her kitchen long enough to make a sandwich.
Wow.
Like she wanted to strengthen her legs,
Right.
to be strong enough so that she could, not get tired. And she wanted to be able to put her dishes away and things like that. So
Yeah.
things that would just make everyday life easier.
Mm-hmm.
And she came in one day, she's like, I stood up yesterday, made my sandwich, I was able to put my dishes away. Yeah, so those, like I said, the
Awesome.
goals can be anything. It can be anything from doing an extreme triathlon to being able to make a sandwich,
Yeah.
or put your dishes away and just move
Mm-hmm.
comfortably. So that would be one thing, to have a goal. Kind of keep track of what you're doing as well. I think it's important to record things, however you might do it. I use a coaching
Yeah.
app, even for my own workouts. Like I put my own workouts on my coaching app and kind of coach
Mm-hmm.
myself so that I have to check in. But having
Right.
somebody there who will hold you accountable,
Yeah.
for following through on whether it's diet or exercise.
Mm-hmm.
For example, when I signed up for a triathlon, the very first one I signed up for, I signed up, paid my money, told everybody that I knew I was doing it so that I couldn't back out.
Right.
Like, all right, here's my motivation.
Right.
Everybody
Yeah.
I know is holding me accountable.
It works. It works.
Right. Yeah, definitely works. But
Mm-hmm.
just in everyday life, those are things that can help too.
Yeah, definitely.
And kind of surrounding yourself with people who are, kind of like-minded,
Yeah.
people, that helps, obviously.
Yeah, definitely. It's a big one.
Yeah.
I think those are really good you know, physical advice, like for your physical
Yeah.
body. But I think also too, you got to keep the mental aspect going and mentally challenge yourself with certain things
Right.
like outside of fitness and outside of triathlons and all those that crazy stuff.
Yeah.
Just doing stuff to keep your
And have a
mind
hobby, have a
going and
goal, right?
yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. For me, I like
Yeah,
to
I was
read
watching,
and I force myself to read
yeah,
so that I kind of, just keep the
right.
wheels moving.
Well, keep learning,
Yeah, yeah.
and keep
That's a
challenging yourself. I
challenging
think,
one though.
oh, it is. Yeah, it definitely is. It's like, all right, what do I want to learn now? There were so many different things, and how am I going to learn it? Am I going to listen to a
Right.
podcast? The problem that I have with some of the podcasts is that, my commute's only 30 minutes. And I guess I could do one podcast over the course of several trips to work, but a lot of these podcasts are like 2 hours long.
Right.
So I'm the kind
Yeah.
of person, I like to find short bits of information that I can get through in 10 minutes that'll give me some good knowledge on something.
Right.
But you have to kind of find what works for you. A lot of people love to listen to, 2 hour long podcasts, and you can learn a lot. There are so many great podcasts out there now. If you don't like
Definitely.
to read, or if you just don't have the time to read and sit down, things like that.
Yeah.
But what else was
Yeah.
I thinking? Yeah, setting goals, kind of keeping that mindset of, wanting to keep moving forward and not just
Yeah. Staying.
status quo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love
Whether
that.
it's learning a new trade, whether it's picking up a hobby, and I like to play guitar a little bit. I mean, I always have. And
Nice.
I'm not good, and I know the same 3 songs that I knew when I was 20, but
Hey, but still.
once in a while I pick up the guitar and I can play those 3 songs, and it's great.
Yeah. Yeah. Hobbies are a huge thing. I think
Yeah. Yeah.
like sometimes we can forget about, finding the joy in hobbies. And like for me, I am very I guess you could say artistic. Like I have a artistic mind and I used to do theater and I used to sing and dance and act. And now that I've kind of gotten into this career, I've kind of fallen off in that aspect. And so
Right.
the other day I came home and I was like, I had nothing to do. I was kind of bored. And I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna sing. Like I'm just gonna
There you
sing
go.
a song and it made me
Belt it
so
out.
happy. Yeah. And
Yeah.
it was
Yeah.
like so fun and it was a good reminder of like, do those things that you used to do
Right.
that gave you joy. And
Right.
you don't have to be great at it. You don't have to like you can play 3 songs. That's great.
Right. That's great.
Like
I'm happy with that. I don't need any more.
right.
But once in a
Yeah.
while, I pick up the guitar. It's nice and relaxing.
Yeah. It's awesome. Yeah. Well, anything else you want to add to everything we talked about?
Oh, I don't know. There's so much.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I think the other thing we were talking about as far as mindset is putting yourself out there once in a while, whether it's doing something that you're not comfortable doing,
Yeah.
challenging yourself. It could be, I've never recorded a podcast before, so this is new for me. So this is,
Right. And yeah.
it's uncomfortable. You get nervous, you get the jitters, whatever, but that's okay. I mean, doing new
Right.
things like that, when I first started teaching virtually a few years ago, teaching classes and doing personal training virtually, totally
Different
new platform because I was 100% in person,
all the
you know,
time. Yeah.
especially being in my mid 50s.
Yeah.
It was always an in person, kind of see and feel kind of person, but you get used to it. You get uncomfortable for a
Yeah.
while, you get over it, you get used to it.
Yeah.
I think that's
Doing
I
things
think
that
that's
make you
important.
uncomfortable. Very important.
Yeah. Right.
Getting
Right.
comfortable in the uncomfortable. I guess you could say.
Exactly. Yeah.
Love it. That's
You keep
awesome.
that
Well,
positive mindset.
yes, very important. Love that. Well, thank you for sharing all that. I think that was super helpful. And I love getting to learn more about you and your crazy lifestyle.
Yeah.
Well, we like to
I'll
finish
keep you
all of
updated on the
our.
chickens. They're supposed to start hatching eggs in a couple of weeks. So
Oh, great.
I was,
I can't wait. I
I was
can't wait to hear
joking with
about
my
that.
wife. It didn't go over well, but I was joking because I wasn't a fan of getting the chickens at all. And I said, all right, we'll have eggs in October and we'll have chicken cutlets in November.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Oh,
She didn't like
well,
that
we
joke.
like we like to finish every episode with a this or that rapid fire question round. So,
Yep.
if you're ready, here we go.
Ready.
Run in or work out. So run or work out in humidity or the heat or in freezing temperatures slash the snow.
I would say heat and humidity. I mean, I could go back and forth on this depending on what the activity is, but I would say
Yeah.
heat and humidity. I think probably because we're in it now. Probably makes me
Yeah.
think that. In the wintertime, I would say if you dress appropriately, it'd be fine going outside for a run if it's 18 degrees, but
It's still
yeah,
miserable.
it
No
is.
matter how
Yeah.
many how much clothes you put on, it's how many layers,
Right.
it's still ugh, I can't.
Yeah.
So I'm with
No,
you.
I don't
Humidity,
mind. And
heat all
it's
the
funny
way.
is I've noticed one thing I've noticed in the last couple of years getting older. I don't know if it's age or what, but I'm less uncomfortable in the heat than I used to be.
Yeah.
Even last week or 2 weeks ago, I was in Florida and I went for a run and it was 95 degrees and probably 90% humidity. And, went for a run and it was hot. It was uncomfortable, but it was fine.
But it was fine. Yeah.
Yeah.
See, I'd rather sweat than be freezing. So
Yeah, exactly.
even when I
Yeah,
work out.
right. Yeah.
Frozen yogurt or ice cream?
Ice cream, 100%.
Okay, interesting. I was expecting you to say frozen yogurt for some reason.
No, I used
I
to be
don't
a
know
big
why.
frozen yogurt fan. I don't know. I think if you looked at them, especially, trying to keep my diet in order, I think frozen yogurt probably has more sugar
Really?
than ice cream. I would imagine.
That? Why?
I mean, what
What's
makes
your
frozen yogurt
reasoning?
taste good? What makes yogurt taste good? It's yogurt, right?
Sugar.
Sugar.
Okay.
What makes
Never
ice cream
thought of
taste
it
good?
that way. Never thought of it that way.
Ice cream tastes good because it's fat. So I guess it
Oh.
depends on what you're
Huh.
depends on what
Food
you're
for
calling
thought.
it. Yeah,
That's awesome.
literally.
Huh. Okay, Nike or Adidas?
Nike. For running, New Balance. But for everyday
Not an
wear,
option.
it wasn't after Nike.
Okay, nice. Summer or winter Olympics?
Winter Olympics. I like to watch
Really?
skiing. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, wrestling. I used to be a wrestling coach. Wrestling is a summer Olympic sport. So I like
Right.
to watch that. But I like to watch the Winter Olympics. I like to watch all the outdoor, probably because I don't do them. I like to watch skiing and all that stuff.
Nice. I'm a big summer Olympics person. The winter's
So what's your favorite sport?
okay. I like to watch the gymnastics and I like
Yeah.
to watch the swimming. And that's about it. The swimming and the
It's
gymnastics to me are my by far my favorite.
yeah, I like to watch gymnastics. What's funny about the Olympics though is that gymnastics and wrestling are typically like in high school they're winter sports, but in the
Oh,
Olympics they're summer
interesting.
sports. So I guess that's why I don't know. I don't know
Yeah.
when I realized that wrestling was a summer Olympic event,
Huh.
but it's a winter sport season.
Gotcha. Like
Right,
in
right after
school and
college.
stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Interesting. Did not know that. I'm just
Yeah,
learning
there you
new
go.
things today from from Mike. Love it. Okay. Workout clothes. Do you go for neutral colors or vibrant colors?
I go for more vibrant colors, especially in my sneakers. I used to have these fluorescent green Nike running shoes that I love to wear. I don't know why, just I think they're fun.
Nice. So that everyone can see you running by.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. I'm
Love
easy
it.
to spot. If I'm doing a race or something, you know when I'm coming because my sneakers are
Right.
glowing.
Right. Yeah, I'm the same way with sneakers, but everything else on my body, I'll go for neutral colors. Like
Yeah,
my whole drawer of workout clothes is like black and gray. It's really
yeah.
boring, but
Yeah, I guess I
at
like a
least my shoes
combination of
are
neutral
bright.
and right. Get those
Yeah,
bright shoes.
that's
Like
awesome.
so the triathlon outfit that I'm wearing um this weekend is mostly black, but then it has streaks of fluorescent green and stuff in it. So yeah, I guess kind of go.
That's awesome.
I can go with both.
I guess it would be
A little
fun to kind of
splash
pick
of
out your
color.
outfit for triathlons. You get to go a
Yeah,
little crazy.
right.
You can wear
Exactly.
whatever you want.
You can wear whatever you want.
Yeah, yeah, that's awesome.
Everybody's wearing those tight little triathlon singlets, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah, cute.
Yeah.
Love it. Okay, well, thank you so much, Mike, for joining us and opening up and telling us your story. It's really inspiring. So thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
All right. Well, thanks for listening to this episode, and we will see you next month. Thanks again, Mike.